My name is Mariam. I am going to change directions a little bit from the previous talks, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about my experience going to graduate school in Europe. And hopefully, if any of you guys are interested in doing such a thing, either for master's, PhD, or postdoc, I can point you in the right direction. So, brief overview of me, I guess. I am a NAC 5 and 6 alum. I did my undergraduate at Whittier College, which is a small liberal arts school in Southern California. And then I did my master's in astrophysics in Europe. And I have several NAC internships, and I'm now working as a test engineer at Space Telescope, supporting the upcoming launch of JWST, knock on wood. So first, to talk about the structure of grad programs and comparing it to how they work in the US. So in the US, you finish your undergrad and you apply to a PhD program expecting 5 years of work. So the first 2 years are typically master's level classes, followed by a qualifying exam, and contingent upon passing the quals, you have about 3 years of research where you're actually working on your PhD. And of course, this can vary a bit from school to school. However, in the European programs, you apply directly to a master's program, and that's just going to be 1 to 2 years of master level classes, at which point you will apply again to a completely new PhD program. That could either be at the school that you did your master's at or anywhere else. And then you're expecting 3 years focused solely on your PhD thesis. And so this would be strictly research and no classes. And master's programs are a bit less competitive and not as difficult to get into because when you're applying to a PhD, they're evaluating your capacity as a researcher, but master's programs, at least in Europe, are strictly focused on just courses. The downside is that most have tuition fees. It's not crazy like in the US. It's around 3,000 to 4,000 euros. But unless you can get a funded position or scholarship, this is a downside because I know in the US, PhDs are fully funded and you're going to be working as a TA your first couple of years so that you are, getting paid for it. So my experience, I attended this program called Astromundus, and it was super cool. So for 2 years, every semester you got to travel to a new university in a new country. So I started off at the University of Innsbruck in Austria, which is that yellow country right there, followed by the University of Padua in Italy. And I spent my last 2 semesters working on a master's thesis at the University of Rome. There was also the option, many students went to the University of Göttingen in Germany or the University of Belgrade in Serbia. A really sad note, I would love to recommend this program to you guys, but they lost their funding. I think especially because it's really complicated to move every semester, and because it was a funded program, like you were paid to go to school, they just weren't able to establish funding anymore. And so for now, the program is on pause. And I mean, of course, COVID didn't help. So there's no bright future for now, but there are, of course, plenty of master's programs that I can recommend to you guys, just none that are as unique as this where you get to move every semester, which honestly is a bit exhausting, and I'll get to that later as well. So Innsbruck, Austria, here's just some fun pictures. Every direction that you look in Innsbruck, you're gonna see huge mountains. So that was a lot of fun. The transportation is awesome. I highly recommend it. Padua, Italy was also very beautiful, and we all know that Italians make great food and great wine. And so in the right, that tower that you see, Galileo was actually studying there for a while, and the astronomy students, that is where we study. Your classes are in that tower, which was absolutely wild. So the history and the environment, the culture is all a huge plus to studying abroad. And finally, I was at Rome for the last couple semesters, and Rome has a lot of history, but if you look behind that cube at that ugly building, that's where our classes were. Rome was definitely my least favorite. It was just a bit run down where our school, where our classes actually were taking place. We were in an old warehouse, but the education was awesome, and the rest of Rome is awesome. So you just have a lot at your doorstep. Some of the main challenges I want to point out to studying abroad, you have to adjust to a new method of teaching and exams. So for example, in Italy, they do almost exclusively hour-long oral exams. So you will meet with your professor and they will just grill you for an hour. So that's stressful. It's different. And so depending on where you're going, whether it's Germany, Austria, France, Italy, like just be prepared to go through an adjustment period. But the one upside is that, at least what I noticed in Italy, is attendance was very much optional. Sometimes the professors didn't even show up to their own classes. And so it was a pretty lax time. And that was just a great experience, you know, to experience a different culture where everything's just slowed down, and it was fun. So another challenge is bureaucracy. You're going to have to go to the embassy. Since you're studying abroad for an extended period of time, you're going to need to get a student visa. So it's kind of like the DMV, but worse, because they probably don't speak English that well. So it's just a lot of paperwork, but once it's done, it's done. You get pretty stamps in your passport. And finally, it's almost essential to learn at least the basics of the language of the country you'll be studying in. Even though most of these programs are taught in English, just the logistics of getting around day to day and ordering food and getting your groceries, it will benefit you to learn the language. So if this isn't something you really would want to do, then it's just something to consider. But of course, it's pretty cool to learn a new language and live in a new place. So if you want to look for master's programs, honestly, just a Google search of master's in astronomy programs in Europe will get you some good results. Here's just one website where you can, put that the language is in English, just to make sure. And then the duration of study can range from 1 to 2 years. And you can narrow down whether there's a specific country you want to study in. And again, most of these are taught in English. So you won't have to worry about, studying in Sweden and also real quick learning Swedish, since you'll be studying astronomy in Swedish. Like, that's not really going to happen. You'll know that before you, sign any contracts. And another really cool thing, it's possible, but it's very difficult, is to go straight from an undergrad in the US to a PhD program. So that's basically going to save you 2 years of your life. Like, you would be going straight to a research position for a PhD and be finished in 3 years. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. And I do know somebody that, she wasn't part of NAC, but she was at NREO the year that I had my internship. She did do this, and it's pretty impressive. So especially with your NREO background or Space Telescope, wherever you guys did your internship, that will make you a strong candidate. And so if you do want to go straight to a PhD and skip a master's and study in Europe, I'd be happy to help you guys out. One program that I really want to emphasize is IMPRIS, which is the Max Planck Institute for Research in Radio Astronomy. So if you've done a radio astronomy program that you really loved and you would want to do a PhD in it, that would be a great option for you. You really have to have a strong idea of what you want your thesis to be. So if you're still not sure and you want to take more astronomy classes, then I wouldn't recommend this, because it is quite challenging, because you have to really argue your case, like defend your case for being a researcher, even though you're young and have only gone through your undergraduate studies. And when it comes to finding PhD programs, the best site that I found is just AAS, the job register. So graduate positions are located right here. That will be PhD positions or masters. I think they have some masters, but mostly these are jobs, so they're the paid positions. And then postdocs as well. You can always, if you're working on your PhD right now and you would want to do a postdoc in Europe, that's totally possible, and there's plenty of options. Those are usually 2-year funded postdocs at a university, also almost exclusively in English. So that's all. I would be happy to answer any questions. And if you guys want to email me, if this is something you would want to do, I'm super stoked about it, and I'd love to help you guys get there. Thank you.
Do you plan on doing a PhD in Europe, or do you have any plans for that?
So I sort of had an awakening during COVID where I decided I don't really want to go down the academia path and I want to get a job. And so I'm super excited to be at a full-time position now at Space Telescope. So I don't think a PhD is in my future. I think I'm just happy to be in the workflow now.
That's awesome. No, that's a great thing to point out. I think that's good that that sometimes I think it's good that we have to have those conversations as STEM people, to know where we want to know what we really want out of life and how we want to proceed in our career path. So that's really awesome that you're open and really forthright about that you found something that you were really interested in and that that you reached your goals. So that's really good.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Aaliyah.
Yeah. Danielle, you're up.
Hey, Miriam. So I have a question about, like, do they require any entrance exams similar to the with the physics GRE in the US or anything like that?
That is a great question that I forgot to put in my slides. They do not require any entrance exams. So if you want to get out of the GRE, I know there's more and more programs in the US as well that don't require it, which is awesome.
Mhm.
But yeah, strictly no GREs. They don't even know what the GRE is. So if you're applying to Europe, that's a good plus side.
Fabulous. Great to know. Thanks.
Kelly, your turn.
Hey, Miriam, thanks for that talk. I had a question about when you said the cost of the master's was like 3,000 or 4,000 euros. Is that per semester or per year? Or?
That's per year.
Okay.
And it will vary from one program to another. There's also scholarships and tuition waivers that are possible. It's just an extra step to apply for those.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I guess I was curious if you could discuss what it was like being a master's student in a purely class-based master's program and what that was like.
Great question. It was stressful. It's a lot of exams and yeah, a lot of exams, and especially when you move each semester was like 5 classes at a time that are very much at a graduate level of teaching. So I learned a lot, read a lot of papers, got very good at reading papers and talking to professors. I'm guessing it's the same regardless of where you go. I guess that would be a question for a PhD student in the US, whether their master's classes were as intense and study heavy. But yeah, it's fun, but definitely a lot of work. At least it's all focused on astronomy. So I didn't have to take, engineering classes or mechanical physics. I didn't have to do that anymore. You get to do cosmology and stellar astrophysics. So it's fun, but definitely a lot of work.